Welcome on in, everyone who's hanging out here. We will wait just a couple seconds, let everything else hook up, and let everything else start talking to each other. Good morning, everyone, and welcome over to Ed's World, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon. I am your host, Jay Edgar, and I'm joined today by a podcast host who I've just had the pleasure of talking to off mic here for a little bit, Eric the Red from Rebel with a Cause podcast. Eric, welcome to Ed's World.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
I'm going to turn you down just a little bit, it sounds like here.
Coming in hot.
Coming in hot. Well, how was your day today? How's your apocalypse?
I survived. This is not exactly how I envisioned the boog kicking off, but, whatever.
I think I left one of my monitors on here. The boot kicking off. We have been talking so much about that. That's been one of the big things that we've had going on here, and it's kind of weird to think about. The fact that we could be at this position right now. I know you said you just started a new job yourself, so I'm sure that's exciting. Getting to work from home just as you started a new job.
Yeah, it was really bizarre going into work on the first day, and 2/3 of the office is already at home trying to shelter in place, and then right at the end of the week they say, "Okay, well, here's your laptops and everything you'll need. Just go home and work at home." And of course, this morning nothing worked, and I had to go into the office anyway. So no Monday is complete without technical difficulties.
That's why I don't work those. That's why I do this for you guys on Monday. Well, we've got a full show to get to today, but before we get started, we do have to pay our respects. We lost a great legend of country music this past week, and even some rock music. I know that hanging around and talking to Brady Leonard, I got to learn about a little bit more of the man's career, but the gambler cashed in for the last time this past week. So, Godspeed, Kenny Rogers. Thank you for your contributions to music, and just thank you for everything else that you did for us as a society. The Little Rascals wouldn't have been the same without you. Do you have any words to send off the gambler, Eric?
Well, at this time, he certainly knew when to fold them. So.
Well, we do have a full show to get to today, as we always do. It seems like I say that all the time on this show, but just the media gets stupider, and so do the American people sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
We will talk today a lot about the COVID. That's actually going to be probably the bulk of our show, which means that we've traded off 2020 watch for the COVID excitement here. Lockdowns have shown up in several states at this point. The stock market doesn't know what the hell it wants to do. The stimulus bill fell in the Senate today, so we'll talk a bit about that. And celebrities and the youth do not take this seriously, so we'll talk a bit about that. Even though we won't be talking as much about 2020, we will be talking a bit about that. Tulsi Gabbard has suspended her campaign, so we'll see what we have to say about that. And Biden and Bernie are picking at each other from the Twitterverse, but the Bernie bros seem to wonder where Biden is, so we'll talk about that. And we'll talk a bit about this past Super Tuesday, where we got half of the super that we thought we were going to. A story I meant to cover last week, but we ran out of time with my guest last week, Stephen Ignoramus, will show up on the itinerary today, in which Ilhan Omar has remarried. So we'll talk about her nuptials and what this could mean in the background as well. The DOJ has dropped their charges on the Russian troll farms, so we'll see what that means for the campaigns going forward and what it could mean for ads against Trump as we go along. Lastly, there was an earthquake that was largely forgotten in the mainstream media in Salt Lake City. So we'll talk a bit about what happened there, our takes from that, and essentially what we should be doing going forward. It's going to be all of this and more over on Ed's World. Before we get started, make sure you go and check us out over on freedomscoop.com, where you can also check out great podcasters like The Generational Gap. You can check out Stephen Ignoramus. The R-Rated Conservative has joined us. Wyatt Birkenhoff has a video series over there, and we've got a blog series coming up. I'm just doing the final reviews on that. So look for that in the near future. And those of you who listened to Eric the Red as well will recognize the last podcaster that will be joining us. Jessica Green is working out a two-person conversational podcast. So look for that in the near future. Eddsworld is provided by YouTube, Twitch, DLive, Facebook, and Periscope for Twitter. Go and check us out on any of those platforms. But if you're on Facebook or Periscope, make sure you get into the YouTube, DLive, or Twitch stream so we can read your conversation between topics here. We always love to have audience participation. Lastly, if you can't catch us live, you can catch us back on demand on YouTube or over on the audio platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. Please remember, if you're over on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That always helps us move up the charts. After a lengthy introduction, the best part about Eddsworld is finding out about great new podcasters and great guests that we have from around the internet. So I know that we don't have webcam going here, so they can't see you, but they can definitely hear you. And Eric, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I am a father, a husband, liberty activist in my spare time through the podcasting and everything else. So I do the Rebel with a Cause podcast. Been doing that since July of 2017. And I'm actually happy to report I finally kicked over the 10,000 download number that I was looking for. So it took a while, but I finally got there.
Impressive.
Yep.
Well, one of the best things that I like to ask about people, whether they come in with a webcam or not, anybody who's over on the left side of the screen here, I always want to know how they got into this fight and how they got into the alternative media. So what prompted you to turn that microphone on and get your voice out there?
Well, it was something that my friends and I had been talking about for months on end, going up to it, but nobody ever kind of wanted to sit down and actually start recording a podcast because I always thought the conversations that we would have, after Libertarian Party meetings and everything, I said, man, this really got to get recorded. But then nobody really wanted to schedule a time for it. So I said, you know what, I'll just do it myself. And so when I started doing it, I was part-time driving for Uber. So in between rides, I would just pull out the phone, get out the little microphone, and start recording episodes in the comfort of my car. So yeah, if you go back and listen to those first episodes, they are rough. So I pre-apologize for that. But yeah, they were all recorded in my car. And then until about episode 20 or 30, I think, I started sitting down with actual microphones and a board to record on the weekends. And then, the rest is history, as they say. And I've been doing it and just released episode 120 today with Jessica Green. So.
And I was listening to that before we went live. It's a good conversation, and regular watchers of this show will remember that Jessica was just over here not that long ago. So go ahead and check that out over there. The links are in the description below if you're on Twitter, or DLive rather, or YouTube, or above you if you're on Facebook. So go check that out. And I think it's time for us to go and start talking about the thing that everyone else is talking about in the world here. What do you think?
That sounds good to me.
Let's put this back off one more time and check in with a live chat here. So the guys don't think I forgot about them. Spartan Subhuman has shown up here and donated a lemon. I can see that over on the monitor here. So thank you, Spartan, for that. Ron Helton busting out the stickers as well. The AOC rolling eye, that's a classic one there. Seawall is here with his bio-sealed half-track and gas mask boogaloo noises. Thanks for coming in, Seawall. He pulled a Bill O'Reilly, he fucked it and did it live.
Yeah.
There you go. That's how you describe your early episodes now, Eric.
Pretty much. Only without berating the staff, because I have no staff. So.
So, is your state locked down?
Yeah, Governor John Bell Edwards, and for those of you keeping score, that's the state of Louisiana. We just did a shelter-in-place lockdown as of 5 p.m. today, Central Time, the best time zone. And yeah, so it was really funny to hear some people talking around the office. It was like, so that mean we have to get off the road by 5? And it was like, well, if you're going to the grocery store. And
right.
I had to chime in. I was like, well, what kind of lockdown is this if we can still go places? which got a little bit of a chuckle, but I don't think people were really thinking about things too much. And I was like, and what if I'm out and now I got to get stopped by a cop to ask where I'm going? No, thank you.
Oh, those fine Fourth Amendment violations that the police like to do on the side of the road. They
Yeah,
are
daily
great, aren't
occurrence
they?
for them. Yeah. It's like, well, I smell marijuana coming from your vehicle. I was like, really? That's a trick I haven't smoked in years. I don't know what to tell you.
It is a trick indeed. So it looks like as of this point, California is confirmed as lockdown. New York is confirmed as hard lockdown on both states. Illinois is also on what they consider to be a hard lockdown just today, and I haven't had a chance to actually read the order yet. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers over here has issued what most people are calling a lockdown suggestion. So I may just have to give people the finger on that one, but that is here. And many other states are rumoring to go on a lockdown as well.
Yeah, it's getting pretty silly pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, I know the National Guard has been mobilized in states too. In Illinois, I don't know. Tim Pool was saying that they're just transporting vehicles out throughout the train system in South Chicago, but other people are saying they are rolling through the streets, especially in the southern part of the state. So I don't know what to believe on that one. I haven't found any hard confirmation or any orders on National Guard scrambling in the state of Illinois, and I don't know what it looks like down in the south.
Yeah, so far here it's been heavier than usual police presence.
I
So like
noticed that. Go
yeah,
on.
so normally you see like the constables only if they're having to go out to go issue a bench warrant or whatever. But I've seen a lot of constables just kind of directing traffic or just kind of being out on a corner somewhere. And then Baton Rouge PD has been kind of all over the place today. So I haven't really seen much of the National Guard. Their location was actually pretty close by on a different street, but I hadn't really seen much of that. And it's been mostly police and state police. So
Now, for somebody who doesn't have a constabulary in his state, what level is constable? Is that like
I
a
think that
municipality
yeah,
or?
yeah, there's probably the local municipality, and it would usually have to do something with the courtroom, I would imagine. So like the constable and the yeah, that type of thing. I think they only just patrol like immediately around the courthouses, and that
Okay.
might not even be true for every little town or city. So
Well, if I remember correctly, Louisiana is the only state in the union that doesn't have counties. Correct? You have a parish government instead.
yeah, we have parishes to keep with the Napoleonic Code, and but you can just think of them as counties. They
Yeah.
pretty much operate the same.
So, do you have a sheriff's department that patrols the counties then, or is that something else that's different on you guys? Or
Yeah, there is an elected sheriff for each of the parishes.
okay.
Right here in East Baton Rouge Parish, it's Sid Gotro, who's he's a character. Probably not very trustworthy, but he keeps getting elected for some reason.
Isn't that how it always goes? I actually bought a car from the guy who is currently the sheriff in the county I grew up in, but I don't even know who the sheriff is in the county I live in.
Yeah, that's definitely information that you would need to find out.
Yeah. I didn't even know who my state reps were until recently because I moved so many times in the past couple of years. I had to check all that
That's
out.
yeah, that's always tough to keep up with. It was like, okay, what district am I in? And here in Louisiana, we have a wonderful gerrymandering. So the district that I'm in is Congressional District 2, which runs up the Mississippi River, skips Baton Rouge completely, and ends up in a town called Zachary. All just to keep a Democrat elected. It's pretty insane.
Wasn't that the whole point of gerrymandering is to keep whoever's in power elected anyway?
Right.
I want to go back on these lockdowns though, because we did point out the fact that there's in some states it's absolute and they know what's going on with all of that. Like California, they know exactly what they have to do, exactly what they can do, what they can't do. And don't worry, Harvey McLeod, if you are watching, we are still working out that breakout procedure because she is buried deep in the belly. Oh, I can't talk right now. Deep in the belly of the beast. That was what I was trying to say. Deep, deep in the Bay Area, she is buried, and we will need to go and get a fast car and get her out of there. Jake and I are working out the details already.
Good luck.
Well, it's just you mentioned an increased police presence, and I, for the most part, when I go to work, it's like 5 miles away from where I live, and it's all on back roads for me, and I never see any law enforcement on any of the back roads. They put
Right.
a township cop on one of them because I kept going through there at 75 and a 35, or 75 and a 35 zone.
Nice.
So they did stick one out there one day, but I came back. I think it was Friday night. I came back home and I saw two sheriff's deputies sitting at the end of one of the roads that I drive on normally, and then three city cops went through one of our local gas stations while I was getting gas that night. So
That's pretty interesting, especially if you're kind of out in the country somewhere.
yeah, and then yeah, we that was the same day that they were starting to rumor the idea of okay, maybe Wisconsin is going to go on a lockdown.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of that could be just preparations for, and then kind of learning the routes because maybe the sheriff's deputies don't go down that way all the time.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, over here in Baton Rouge, it's just been pretty crazy. You'll see police car pretty much every 5 minutes at least. And normally it's not like that because some of the ways that I go to work, it's like, I'll hit one major street, turn off to go to a side street because Baton Rouge traffic is pretty nuts.
Hmm.
And then when you come back out of the side street, there may be a cop there, may not be. But yeah, definitely today I was noticing quite a lot of them.
Well, having stuff on lockdown too interests me in maybe some, I don't want to say illegal activity, but definitely some sort of outlaw activity out there. And I mean, you're from the South, obviously, so there's a deep tradition of that where you're from. I said to a few people on Facebook today that I just bought a shiny new pickup a couple months ago in January. I bought it. Actually, it was late for a show because I was buying the truck one night. And right now, I'm starting to think it might be time to go trade that in for something with a spacious trunk, a V8 that's rear wheel drive.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with a Chrysler 300 or a Dodge Charger because it has both of those. So
I'm more of a Ford man, and I'm thinking a Lincoln Mark 8 would be the ideal one for me.
yeah, there you go. Something with a big old trunk. I used to drive a town car,
Yeah.
1993 town car, and I was kind of joking one time. I went to go buy a guitar and an amp, and we were able to fit that in the trunk. And he was like, "Man, no wonder the mobsters like that." And I said, "Yo, yeah, that's a 3.5 body trunk." He didn't really get the joke immediately at first, and I was just kind of deadpan staring at him, and he goes, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah,
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
yeah,
No, because I mean, if we're all going to be on lockdown, at some point, there's going to be a black market that opens up.
oh yeah, that happens every single time."
Whether it's just for alcohol or getting people from place to place without getting touched by a local police force.
Or in this day and age, you can hide a whole bunch of Scott bathroom tissues in the trunk.
Well, I mean, the pickup's got what you could call the biggest trunk out there that there is, but it doesn't corner that well.
Not usually.
It's really fast in a straight line. I will give it that. That the redesigned 302 that they just put in for the Ford pickups is second to none in my opinion. But yeah, it in a straight line is all you get out of that.
Yeah. Like even the upgraded Ford Raptor, that's got a pretty good engine, and it'll haul ass. But it's yeah, a little more straight line cornering, not so much.
So where do you think this goes if they continue to go to lockdowns? Like I say, we're in a lockdown suggestion right now, but I know that the hard left that's backing Tony Evers is ready to put him on the cross for the fact that he doesn't. I think they're ready to get jackbooted people out there to enforce this. Reading some of their Twitter threads on this.
Yeah, it's really crazy, and if maybe I'm misunderstanding what a lockdown suggestion would be. I guess that just means elderly people over the age of 50 who are already immune compromised need to stay at home. I'm thinking that's probably what that means. But
Well,
here in this state, they're just saying non-essential personnel need to stay at home.
from what I
And then there's a
understand,
big
it's
gray area there.
From what I understand off of the order that we had up here, it is the same. Is the order is the same? Non-essential people need to stay home. Excuse me, but he has no way to enforce it. There's no enforcement method that went along with it. So it's like, okay, stay at home.
Yeah, that was I had shared a screenshot on my Twitter feed of a of one of the per orders, and they said, "Well, you could face $1,000 fine or jail." And I was like, "Oh, that's just great. You want us to stay away from people, but if we don't, we're going to get locked up in a very confined space with other people." I don't get it.
Well, that's the same thing too. And going back onto the enforcement side, like you've actually got a fine and a penalty for that. They don't necessarily have one here, and part of that, and I was discussing this with some other people. I was talking about it with my girlfriend and a couple other people. Up north, where I grew up, there is no way you have the personnel or the driving talent, for that matter, to enforce something like that.
Right.
You have vast farms of 180 acres where people can run and hide, and a lot of them know the terrain better than the local deputies do.
Yeah, we had kind of touched on that earlier with the sheriff's deputies. Midwest, you probably got farm roads out to Yin Yang, and they probably got little side dirt roads that aren't even on a map anywhere
Mm-hmm.
that you could easily duck in, turn all the lights off, and just hide there.
Right.
Yeah, even in big cities, if you know the surface streets well enough, you can probably get away from a cop. But it's a little more difficult on that end. But yeah, I can't see them trying to enforce this at all. And if they do, I can only imagine the lawsuits that are going to happen afterwards.
So let's move off of this for a second and go and talk about the roller coaster that has been the stock market for the last week. So one of the
Tell me
things,
about it.
because I talk about the stock market constantly on Contemporary because it seems to be the biggest news every single morning by the time I'm going on, and that is the fact that with the exception of 2 days in a row of hitting limit down last week, every day last week was it hit limit up and then it hit limit down, then it hit limit up and then it hit limit down and limit down again. And it seems to be
Yeah.
doing that for the last couple of weeks. What have you seen on this so far?
Um, Pretty much the same. Just kind of looking at the over today, and it's been kind of up and down all day today. But looks like it finally closed at down 582
Yeah, it dropped
for
hard today.
5 days. It was like trying to make its way up, and then it would bottom, and then try to make its way up, and then bottom again. So it was like a what the stock traders call a descending pennant. So it's and over the month it's just been pretty steady decline. I guess since the news had hit, but prior to that, it started making highs. So, but yeah, this I'm kind of in agreement with Peter Schiff on this. COVID-19 seems to be the pin that's pricking the bubble,
Yeah.
and in this case, it's the everything bubble. And so now the air's starting to come out of it, and it doesn't matter how much the plunge protection team, or what's otherwise known as the president's working group on investments, is going to start infusing cash in there, and it's just going to get evaporated. So, yeah, if you got money in it, you might want to get out of it and just readjust and wait until later. Otherwise, you're just going to end up losing a lot of money. So,
Well, see, I tend to disagree with that on an extent. Just thinking back at some of the crashes that we've had, I was listening back to Shapiro over the last week when all this started tanking on this, and he actually I think it was Knowles that made the point. Knowles, yeah, it was Knowles that had quoted Warren Buffett because in the 1987 crash, somebody had actually gone up to Warren Buffett and said, "Hey, how much did you lose in this crash?" And this was long after everything started to recover. "Hey, how much did you lose in the 1987 crash?" And he said, "Nothing. I didn't sell."
yeah, well, that's the old adage. Bears make money, bulls make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So,
I like that. I've never heard that one before. I like that.
yeah. So, I mean, if you know your way around it, and yeah, even if you're not selling anything, and shortly afterwards everything starts climbing back up, it's definitely a gamble that you might want to take. But because if you're wrong, you're going to be hurting. And if you're right just about that one thing, you never know. That could double your money or triple your money. It just depends on what bets you made.
Well, one of the things too that really gets me on the market here is they keep talking about, and I am against the stimulus personally. I don't like the idea on principle, and I
Yeah.
will return. I will actually have asserted the fact that I'm going to tear the check in half and send it back to the government, possibly laced with profanities. I haven't decided how much I hate the idea yet. But
If you
people,
do decide to send it back, get an envelope and cut it in the shape of a middle finger.
but I also know that some people actually need this. So, and part of what's going on this, of course, is people are saying that the stock market is dropping right now because they can't get the stimulus checks out. And I do agree with that because the news is out there and the news is going to cause all of this to go the way that it does. The markets are going to follow what the news is telling them to follow, but even if they get the stimulus checks out, I'm worried that we can't rally back yet as long as we're all in lockdown because whether or not you give people $1,200 or not, or however much you wind up giving them with all the kids they have and everything, if they don't
Right.
have a place to spend the money, what is it going to do for the markets?
I mean, at that point, they're just going to sit on it. Um, and it's really telling because they all say, well, let's suspend payroll taxes because that'll spur the economy. And I was like, okay, great. You now put two and two together. Now let's do this all the time. But they can't think beyond that.
I have
But yeah,
been against the payroll tax thing since the beginning, not because I'm against people not paying payroll tax. I love the idea that they're not going to pay payroll tax. And of course, in a good economic time, I would be all for suspend the payroll tax as well because
right.
at that point, I listened to Beauty and the Beta. That's actually Matt Christensen was one of them that got me into the whole alternative media thing. But I remember the episode a couple years ago when they paid the business taxes. It was their first year, the both of their first years not having an actual job. It was the first year that they were both doing podcasting full time. That was their only
Right.
job. And so they weren't getting payroll taxes taken out of their checks anymore. They weren't getting anything taken out of their donations. So they actually had to pay in at the end of the year. And after Matt had professed the fact that he had got a Me Too movement from the tax lady, he said, and he pointed, and this has stuck with me since they pay the taxes. If people don't know what they're paying in taxes because it gets taken out at the end of they never see it. And then they either pay in if they didn't pay enough at the end of the year, and it's usually a minuscule amount, or they get some money back. And they think
Yeah.
that's just money back from the government. If everybody had to write a check at the end of the year, you would see the tax code change overnight if they all had to pay that kind of
Yeah.
tax and that kind of money in. If they all had to write a check at the end of the year, you would start seeing a lot of that change overnight. But going back to the payroll tax thing, yes, it's going to be cute if they think they can spur the economy by keeping people's taxes in their checks for the rest of the year. But they never say the word income tax, and that's what worries me
Yeah.
because I do see
Yeah.
that.
They definitely said payroll withholdings,
Hmm.
and we all know that's going to be completely different than income and Medicare, Medicaid, and your Social Security tax coming out. So I'm thinking at the end of the year, people are still going to have to end up owing that money,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's not going to be a pretty day, especially people who haven't been paying attention and their only source of news is whatever CBS, sorry, ABC, NBC is saying at around dinner time, and they're
Hmm.
not really paying attention to it full time. Maybe then, some people will just say, "Hey, wait a minute, I thought I was getting money back every year," and then they don't seem to. It's like, no, you paid too much, and they're sending you a refund.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's going to be pretty crazy, and I'm already starting to see. Some of my lefty progressive friends are starting to notice the same thing. I was like, well, wait, how much are they taking out? And I was like, yeah, and it all goes for the stuff that you guys don't like. So
Hmm.
yeah, so I for one kind of chuckle at it a little bit, just from the sheer fact that now people are finally paying attention to what myself and others have been noticing for decades now, and have been screaming at the top of our lungs only to get shouted down as conspiracy theorists and racist and bigots and homophobes and everything because we don't like what's happening.
Well, now that we've completely bypassed the Dow Jones topic and actually started into the stimulus plan, let's talk about that for a little bit
Right.
here because that has been the saving grace to get around the payroll tax thing. It seems like, except it has been blocked. Now, just to talk about what the stimulus package was, and I read the stimulus package front to back when it first became available, and I know what is in that. And what left wing Twitter right now is trying to tell you is wrong. I can tell you that right off the bat. Because they're trying to tell you that this is just a slush fund for rich people. It's not. What has been proposed at the time I was writing the itinerary, it was actually $1,000 to each adult based on the taxation that they were owed. So some of the people on the lower end actually were going to get less, but it's not because the government didn't care about them enough. It's just they didn't have enough tax liability to rebate against. So it was up to $1,000 at the time. Now they have upped that in the last iteration up to $1,200 per adult and $500 tax rebate per child as long as you had enough tax liability in 2018 to cover it. So there were some people that were going to get some serious money back off of this. And like I said, I think that there are going to be strings attached to this, and I do think that they are going to tax it somehow because the government doesn't like to give up money unless they're spending it on something.
Exactly. And if they're talking about suspending payroll taxes and everything, you don't hear them also talking about suspending spending.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so now we're going to be spending money on stuff that's not even coming in. So if they're going to make the economy worse, they couldn't have picked a better way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, even with this, $1,200 or $2,000, depending on, how many dependents you have, it's going to be really, really tough to sell that to the lefties because they think that the government is the savior of all problems.
Right.
And they just don't realize that the government is actually the cause of about 99% of their problems.
Well, the problem with the stimulus that was out there, the problem that I had with it and the vote that took place today is the fact that Senate Democrats actually wrote large portions of the bill that came to the table to get voted on today. They wrote large portions of it, and then they voted down the bill that, for the most part, they wrote. I don't know if you've seen any of the stories that went along with that one today.
No, I kind of saw where the headline had come across that they had voted it down, but I didn't really get into the particulars of it. And
Yeah,
I didn't even know that they had wrote most of it, and only to vote it down later, which seems kind of silly, I mean, that's the bill you wanted. You wrote part of it. Yeah. Yeah,
well, Pelosi came back today from vacation and she started throwing shade at the whole thing. And yeah, she is a big part of the reason that I'm pretty sure anyway, that they decided to reject it and start over.
That Nancy Pelosi just throwing shade wherever she can throw it, I guess.
Well, I know Bernie was like, go ahead.
I mean, for the most part, she's got that Democrat Party under control. I mean, even when the quote, the squad started coming out, she was trying to throw shade on them too. And, and we've seen that they've kind of backed off of her and she's backed off of them. So I don't know. She definitely seems to rule that side of the house with an iron fist,
Well, and I know the Democrats were on board with getting this out to the American people. I actually wrote an article and I posted to Freedom Scoop that Sewell actually hit right on the head, too, what I was about to say. I wrote an article and I put it on Freedom Scoop begging Nancy Pelosi to let this one go through and then go and put her pet projects in the next one because they're going to have another stimulus phase. They're going to keep spending money to try and get out ahead of this thing. So put your pet projects in the next one and let the people who are furloughed, the people that can't get unemployment, the people that need to eat, let them get some money right away.
Right.
And yeah, they don't want to let the GOP have the win.
Yeah, and I do see that there's going to be a race to dunk on each other on this one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they'll be the first ones to say, "Look, we got you all this money," and those darn pesky Republicans are the ones that kept you from it. And the other side too is going to be like, "Look, we could have got you more money, but the Democrats." I can just see the political ads going forward, especially since we're in an election year.
Oh, this is going to be a great one for political ads.
Yes, they've already been pretty insane themselves, just with the Mike Bloomberg ads all over the place. Yeah, I can't imagine 2020 getting any crazier. But yeah, we're still in virgin territory. The year
Oh,
is
you
still pretty
jinxed
young.
it.
Yeah. Knock on all of the wood around you.
Well, and I'm even seeing too. I mean, as hard because Twitter loves to suspend the trending hashtags that go against Democrats. As hard as they've been trying to, I don't know, keep these ones down that the Democrats hate America. And I don't know if it's just because I'm right leaning on Twitter that they're showing me what I want to see, or if it's something else with the algorithms. But they have had a hard time keeping these ones suppressed.
Um, People will figure out a way to get around the algorithm. They'll either put one hashtag in there that they know is getting shadow suppressed. I guess they're not going to come out and say, yeah, we're trying to keep this hashtag down,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll just tag it with something else that maybe not doesn't even apply. So even the normie Twitter that goes through there and is maybe not in tune with the political side of it, they're starting to see it. But I've also noticed, whenever I leave comments on something, uh, like everybody who follows me can, will like it pretty immediately and then they'll reply back. But I noticed that everybody else in that thread that maybe not are following me, that they may not see it. It may be so far down the list that they don't even read that part.
Right.
So it's really interesting to see how Twitter does this. And I know a lot of it's probably automated, but I can only imagine that there's got to be some kind of human influence to it.
No, don't you remember when Dorsey was Dorsey and whatever the hell her name was were on Rogan
Oh,
with Tim
yeah.
Pool? Well,
Yeah.
that's a problem, and we're looking into it.
Yes.
Do,
I do love corporate speak every time I see it.
do you watch Freedom Tunes?
I've caught a few of them here and there. I do enjoy them. Especially what was it? The Adventures of Strawman.
Yeah, I like those ones.
Yeah, those are great.
But he actually got Poole to guest star on his episode, talking about the episode where Dorsey and Poole were on Rogan, and it is probably one of the funniest ones I ever saw. And of course, because of the beanie, they made Tim Pool look like Stan Marsh with a beard.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
But yeah, all the crossing the fingers behind the back, I cracked up on that one.
You know, they weren't actually doing it during the interview, but you could tell they were thinking about it. It was like, I got to say something here, I guess. It's a problem. We're looking into it.
Well, I know that the Dems did want to get out ahead of this and try to outpromise people. I know the Republicans, yes, they are trying to make a bill where they come somewhat income negative, or
Right.
neutral rather. So they're doing tax rates and rebates and everything else. But the Dems, on the other hand, have been trying to pump out bill after bill where they're just giving out free money to people. And one of the things that I caught, and I'll be talking about it in the morning. I don't believe I got to it this. No, I did get to it this morning. I read it this morning. I thought it was on. My contemporaries are running together. I apologize. But Rashida Tlaib floated the idea late last week about just giving people cash out of the government. It was actually to send out a debit card to every human being in the U.S., whether illegal immigrant, citizen, or otherwise. Send out a preloaded $2,000 debit card and have it automatically reloaded with $1,000 every month until a year after this crisis was over, was what the article said, and I quote. And she wanted to do this by minting two platinum trillion-dollar coins to inflate the currency to the point that they could do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember having these dumb discussions with my high school friends in high school. It's really a shame that an elected official is going along. It was like, well, we could just mint a coin, and that will wipe out all the debt. Shake my head.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, even doing the Democrat or Republican proposal that got shot down, even doing that is going to inflate the currency to a point. That's why I don't want to have the stimulus check to begin with, because it comes with strings attached. Either it's going to get taxed or it's going to inflate the currency. But I mean, what Sanders and Tlaib and all of the people on the House side are talking about at this point is just, you might as well start using the currency as toilet paper, because it's not going to be worth anything else if they get their way.
Yeah, yeah, and the dollar's already lost over 90% of its value since the Federal Reserve Act was enacted in the 1913. So, I mean, Could it go lower? Yeah, it surely can go lower. And of course, the on both sides of the aisle, it's all Keynesian economics, all modern monetary theory. Is where deficits don't matter, and we can listen to Paul Krugman all day long. And what as long as we spend money and tell people to go out there and spend it, I guess we're increasing the economy, as if the Weimar Republic never happened. I don't. You just have to look at this stuff and you got to scratch your head. It's like, okay, these people are smart enough to at least breathe on their own, and they can tie their shoes. I don't see why they're not thinking this stuff through. But then the other hand of that is, I'll put my monogram tinfoil hat on for a moment. I was like, oh well, they're just doing this on purpose. It's got to be the only explanation for it.
Oh, you have a monogram?
A monogram tinfoil hat to keep all the space rays out.
Oh, mine's just regular tinfoil. I gotta meet your monogrammer.
Exactly. Get the silver level.
Well, I want to touch on just a couple other stories here before we get on to the youth vote not taking this seriously, and we get to watch a video of somebody my age, because I think you're a little older than I am, but somebody around my age taking this completely seriously. But let's talk about a couple other things here. First off, and this is what blew my mind. I read this on Contemporary and I couldn't believe it, even as the words were coming out of my mouth. Ilhan Omar has praised Donald Trump for his leadership during the COVID-19 crisis. And so has Andrew Cuomo and Gavin Newsom. But Ilhan Omar has praised President Trump on this.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
What happened there? I mean, what was it? Last week she was calling for him to be arrested from the White House, and
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of strange, especially with Gavin Newsom. I mean, these were all people with heavy symptoms of TDS.
And of
I don't know,
course,
that's kind of crazy.
you'll never meet a Cuomo that likes Trump anymore.
The Fredo can't handle it. Oh, was I not supposed to joke about that?
Hey, that's a racial stereotype. I will not have racism on this show.
As a quarter Sicilian, I'm allowed. Gosh darn it.
So, yeah, I mean, he's got the road to the re-election at this point. Nancy Pelosi just wrote him a series of campaign ads, and if Cuomo and Newsom have come out and said that he had the leadership off of this, unless the TDS gets so bad throughout the next, because I mean we still have 8 months to go with this, so unless the TDS gets so bad that Cuomo and Newsom get back over on the Dem side, I mean they're going to back him at this point.
Uh, and even during the impeachment fiasco, they're passing military spending bills, and they're saying, well, if he's the most dangerous president ever, why are you giving him more power, more money to dwindle away on two stupid wars that shouldn't have been started in the first place? There was your time to shine. And now you're going to come back and say, well, his leadership has, been exemplary during this crisis.
Yeah. Yeah, this crisis
I
was
can't make
supposed
heads
to
or tails of it, man.
This crisis was supposed to destroy him, and the mainstream media sure did a whole hell of a lot to make sure that went through. And
Yeah.
he's come out on top of it. He is Teflon Don at this point. I'm starting to believe it.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter even if the media was trying to paint him one way or the other. His base is just going to say fake news and move on. They're not going to listen to him anymore. So it's at this point he's got the media wrapped around his little pinky finger, and he can make them dance. So I don't know. It's really interesting to see, because we have never had a president quite like this ever. It might make the argument that Teddy Roosevelt was a little bit kooky and crazy back in the day. But this president just knows how to sidestep the media altogether, and he just gets his message out to the base, and they'll eat it up, and it's quite a thing to see.
All right. Next story I have here, of course, I don't know what the stores are doing down by you, but most of the stores at this point have restocked at this point, and then they ran out of stuff again.
Yeah, down here we had to run on the toilet paper.
I
Had to
don't
run on paper
understand.
towels.
I don't understand.
I, I don't get it either. I was like, we had to run on toilet paper, had to run on paper towels, had to run on party napkins once they figured out that is also a paper product.
Hmm.
So I can only imagine the plumbers after this is all over is going to have a sweet little deal going around unclogging everybody's toilets. Um, and the other thing was milk. They went and just grabbed up all the milk. Like the only thing left was like the skim milk, which is basically water and lactose, and vegan milk, which I have no clue what's in vegan milk, but I'm pretty sure I can't feed it to my dog without it, becoming animal abuse at that point. And then, then you take a look over at the vitamin aisle, the thing that helps you boost your immunity, and all the shelves are fully stocked.
For us, it was the paper products, obviously, and some of the canned goods, but they weren't touched all that hard in my region. In other parts of Wisconsin, they were. I went down last week to buy mac and cheese because it's always good to have dried boxes here just in case. That whole aisle was wiped completely clean.
So like the mac and
Nothing.
cheese, ramen noodles, everything.
Yeah, nothing. There were a few boxes of generic store brand mac and cheese left on the shelf, was all that was there.
Oh man, had to slum it with the store brand. Oh,
I like store brand actually a little bit better, I'm not going to lie. But that same day, I went over to the meat counter, and the particular grocery store that I go to, if it's the day that like, if you're on the sell by date of the meat, they mark it down 66% and put it out on the shelf with a big sale sticker on it. I went out and bought $30 worth of meat for $10.
it was probably before the sell by date. It was probably like what, 50 or 60 bucks at least.
It was no, I saw the original price on everything. It was $30 worth of meat for like $10.
Oh yeah, nice. Okay, cool.
So they're not taking any of the fresh stuff, but they were taking all the dried goods, the canned stuff, and the paper products. And then I went over to, not because that was the big grocery store in the city. I went over to the little one right around the corner from me, and that was yesterday morning. I needed to get oatmeal and some energy drinks yesterday morning, and I was going to get some eggs because I was out. Gone. All the eggs were gone.
Very long too. So I mean, you pretty much have to eat those right away because you can't really freeze them.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I've got like a little Dollar General like right down the street from me, and pretty much the same thing. Paper products gone. Um, Bottled water was still kind of there. If it was like the expensive bottled water. So like down here we get stuff out of Spring. So there's a company called Evermore and Ozarka. Like there might be a little bit more than like a regular bottled water that's maybe don't have a brand on it. But yeah, those were still left. And the other thing was frozen meals. Those were all gone. Like you couldn't go in there and get like a little, just a little pizza or something. All that was gone. Pretty crazy. All of the cottage cheese that you could ever want was available though,
Well,
because not even in the apocalypse, people are going to want to eat cottage cheese.
actually, that's another thing too. That's weird because I had a mild allergy to salad dressings when I was younger, so that was what I put on my salads when I was younger because it was the only thing I could top it with that
Oh,
tasted halfway decent and wouldn't make me throw up uncontrollably.
yeah, throwing up uncontrollably is definitely a check in the con column, I'm sure. So outweigh it with the cottage cheese being of the devil.
Last thing I want to touch on before we get into the youth stuff is I don't know if you're a Netflix guy, a Hulu guy, but one of the news stories that I found interesting with all of this going on is shows like Contagion were trending hard on Netflix, and they actually added a top 10 feature recently on the
Yeah,
desktop version. I haven't seen if it's on the Fire Stick version or not, but on the desktop version, you can see the top 10 of the week, and yeah, Oblivion, Contagion,
yeah.
other disease show.
That movie Contagion has an interesting backstory. It was originally financed by a guy who wanted to make sure that the CDC looked really, really good in a movie. So it was actually a propaganda piece.
Nice. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You once you look up that company, they want to do like activism through film type of thing. And Contagion was, I think, was their first movie that they did like that. But it was all just to make sure that the CDC needed to be shown as still relevant. And it was right at a time where Congress was thinking about cutting funding to the CDC. And after the movie came out, they got all the funding that they wanted. So
And
it
it'd
was
be interesting now
pretty
to
interesting.
now with that backstory. Now I understand why the corporate media is trying to get that to trend again.
Yeah, yeah. And then I even saw the movie Outbreak was trending, and I was like, didn't they like firebomb a village in the beginning of that movie? What are they trying to tell us?
Well, it's the same reason that they promoted like all the streaming services have Star Trek for free. It's free on Amazon. It's on Netflix. I think it's on Hulu. So you can get it
Right.
from all of them. And what it was Roddenberry's dream to have a currency-less egalitarian society where people work for fun.
Yeah, they just work for funsies. No self-interest at all.
It's funny because I've actually been watching Voyager, and especially the beginning seasons of that show. In the later seasons, they got better about it, but in the beginning of the seasons of that show, there was scarcity.
Oh,
Roddenberry would be rolling over in his grave if he had ever seen scarcity on something that said Star Trek on it.
yeah, because he solved the scarcity problem with the replicators.
Oh, you have to fuel the replicators, though, remember.
Yeah, yeah, very true. All the dilithium crystals you could use.
Well, that was a big problem in the first season. It was the dilithium in the first couple seasons. They were on the opposite side of the galaxy. They had no idea where to get it from, and they were running scarcity on it. So,
Mm.
yeah, Roddenberry would be rolling over in his grave on that one.
That would have been a loud screaming phone call, I'm sure, to the writer's room. So, what are you guys doing? I'm trying to promote space communism.
So, how has spring break been for you guys down in Louisiana? I know you've got a generally warm climate.
Yeah, it's with the whole COVID-19 thing, it's kind of put the kibosh on people going down to Bourbon Street, New Orleans, considering that's where the majority of our cases are.
I
Uh,
wonder why.
yeah, it's people on top of people, and they're drinking after each other. It's it's a fun time, but
Are you
I
talking
haven't really
people on top of people in the density, or are you talking just what spring break was supposed to be?
a little column A, little column B. Yeah, it gets pretty wild down there, and yeah, so you got people, and they live pretty close to all of the party centers. So like Carondelet and Bourbon Street, there's apartments like right on top of those buildings. You go one street over, and you still got downtown living, and even for folks who live in houses and stuff, I mean that's like 5-10 minutes away. So it's just population dense. I haven't really seen tourism take a dive, but I haven't really taken a look at the numbers. I got to imagine it's probably put some kind of strain on it.
Well,
But I know over in Miami they had like a big police presence on the beach trying to get people off the beach, which I was like, oh well, this is scary.
I took this picture. Speaking of Miami, because yes, they were having a problem with this, and I talked a bit about it on Contemporary. UW Madison students were coming out and saying they didn't give a damn about the fact that there was a pandemic going on. They were still going to go on their spring break. They were still going to get drunk and screw. And I mean, if they're going to bring syphilis and genital warts and other various diseases back, why not bring back COVID-19 too?
Yeah, might
And
as well.
we had this scene on the beaches in Florida, on one of the white sand beaches down there. I found this. So yeah, they don't care.
Yeah, and I was even seeing some of that on Instagram where they were drinking beer cans like in between the cheeks of hot women. I was like, yeah, that's not sanitary at all.
Yeah, let's do a body shot when we're sitting in the middle of a pandemic that's airborne.
Yeah, I've been told not to touch each other's faces, and here you guys are.
So speaking of that as well, I mean, some of this is fueled from the fact that some of the celebrities that a lot of these people follow around are saying that this is no big deal. And I've got this a 20-second clip. You want to get on with the one of the monitors there? I've got this 20-second clip of Vanessa Hudgens. It came from a 40-minute makeup tutorial that she did on Instagram Live, talking about how she felt about the pandemic here. So let me get that queued up here and we'll listen to what High School Musical star Vanessa Hudgens had to say because that was probably the last movie she was in, if I remember correctly.
Probably.
All right, here we go.
Sorry, but like, it's a virus. I get it. Like, I respect it. But at the same time, like, even if everybody gets it, like, yeah, people are gonna die. It's just terrible, but like, inevitable? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this right now.
Just in that 21-second clip, there were 5 likes.
Yeah, pretty in rapid succession too. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that was impressive. I like that. So, what are your thoughts on something like that? The fact that I mean, she got backlashed hard off of that. The media, the mainstream media, the government officials that were around it, and even just the general people. BTF owed her hard on that one.
Yeah, that one's kind of rough. If you're definitely going to be going against the grain like that, and you got to imagine she's probably got some agent saying, "No, no, no, don't say that, don't say that." Might have got a strongly worded email afterwards, maybe.
Does she even have an agent? What has Vanessa Hudgens been in the last? What's it been? 10 years?
When you said that, I was like trying to look it up on the glowing rectangle here. I was trying to see. I was like, man, I don't even remember what the last thing she was in.
I'm pretty sure the last thing she was in was High School Musical 3.
Yeah, let's see. Did a movie called Spring Breakers in 2012.
Oh.
It says Switch in 2018.
Yeah, and I haven't heard of any of those, so yeah, she's
Night
doing
Before
well.
Christmas 2019. So maybe just work here and there.
She made her money off Disney, and then she went off the deep end of stupidity. At least this time, not drinking and boozing. And well, she did have that one that leaked photo of like full frontal that she had out. I remember that.
That was quite a lot of the actresses. All of their boyfriends rolled over on them and just started posting stuff. And then people started figuring out how to hack iCloud. Just keep that in mind, ladies. When you're taking those naked selfies, people have a way of getting it.
Especially if you use Apple. Well, if you don't have anything else on COVID-19, I think we need to check in with our horribly neglected live chat here.
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's see what we've got to say here. Wow, we've got a lot of conversation going on here. Let's see. Seawall says, I hear new police, National Guard, and military uniforms are going to be Hugo Boss. Ron Helton says, there was a lot of old timers out and about today, and I was wondering why so many, said the old timer. You're not that old. Sully Blue is here. What's up, Jay? What's up, Sully Blue? Seawall says, you guys will need hazmat suits as well. Jessica Green is here. Hey, y'all. Hey, Jessica. Welcome on in.
Hey, welcome.
Sully Blue had a great compliment for me. It amazes me you don't have more live views. You put on a great show. Well, sharing is caring, Sully. And then he's on your side with the Chrysler products. No Mopar, no car, good sir. I'm sorry, I grew up in the '90s with the transmission problem in the trucks, so that turned me off a Chrysler for a long time.
I totally get it.
But my boss's kid had a Dodge Omni, and I may have hotwired it and had some of the linebackers from our high school team turn it sideways in a loading dock door. That might have happened.
Maybe. We live in a universe where that is possible.
Seawall says, look, thank the retards going out and partying. We were just talking about that. They're the ones helping fuel the lockdown side. Let's see. Ron Helton says, I like staying at home anyway, but I had bank business that could not be handled from the house. Spartan says, ATM Corona withdrawal. Burial arrangements. That's sad.
Yeah.
Restaurants turned out to be a useless business in this market. Thank you, Spartan. Seawall says, no, stay in the markets when we were talking about the stock market here. COL says, look, the big investors are trying to get the small investors to sell, drop the price, and they will try to buy it once it bottoms out. Yeah, that's true.
That is a legit tactic, and that happened at the 2008 when all the prices started going through the floor. People came along and just bought it up for pennies on the dollar. And a lot of those are still up today. So
Ron Helton says the dollar's in trouble. The virus is providing a convenient cover. They have pumped over $2 trillion into the bad loan credit market since September. Yeah, we talked about that on Contemporary. Thanks for the article, by the way, Ron. That was a good one to put in there. And if you guys want to get in the Discord server, the link should be down below. You can put articles in for me to review, and I will read them on Contemporary if they're NewsGuard certified, or if I can find something that's NewsGuard that will corroborate what they said. It's got to be from a green check verified website for me to take it, but even if you get me something from a blog, I can use that as a jumping point to go find something else. I want to do that with the Earn It Act later on this week because, yes, that is starting to get NewsGuard certified coverage because of people like you sharing about that. The major dining restaurants were closed today. There were several drive-thrus. School buses ran their regular routes today to deliver sack lunches to children at noon today. There's around the corner from me, there's a restaurant that actually I think used to be a Hardee's or a Burger King, and now it's actually a sit-down casual dining restaurant. They did it really nicely when they redid it, but yeah, you can only get stuff from the drive-up window at this point that was not used up until today. Let's see, almost 10K new virus cases in the U.S. today. Testing is ramping up. As more tests become available, we're going to start seeing these numbers jump, so keep that in mind. Seawall says,
I
go ahead.
saw a story of Korea has developed a 10-minute test kit for COVID-19, and they're going to start ramping up production to produce 300,000 units per week.
Seawall points out correctly they want to be able to claim credit for the bailout. They don't want the GOP to claim credit. We talked about that again. This is going to bite the Dems hard, locked, caught, and ready to be rocked. Thank you, Saint, for coming in. Seawall says, next week, Seawall is declared Lord Governor of Texas, and Trump ascends to God Emperor status of America, and Jed is declared Lord Governor of Cheeseland. I'll take it. Saint says, herpes Rashida. Thank you. Yes, perfect idea. Give $1,000 UBI for life. Spartan's UBI guy. That's $3 trillion a year. She accepted being crusaded into her life. I don't know what that one is. Capitalists would tax you per breath. No, they would not. Ron Helton says, I'm sure there's a tax for that. Let's see. Pete the Patriot is here. Welcome on in, Pete the Patriot. I got everything I needed today, no problem. 0.34%, that is the population of medical doctors in the United States. Is this real or Memorex? This is live, Pete the Patriot. There were plenty of canned goods and most of the other items in the smaller stores to say. One had a pallet full of rice, no waiting, no locusts. Seawall puts nothing on salads. They're going to give away free money for people who want to cancel their student loans. Then I want a new truck. Thank you, Ron Helton, and so do I. Seawall says, C's currently in a currency in Star Trek Online. Are you sure about that? That was post Roddenberry, Seawall. Keep that in mind. Seawall says, Ron, I don't need removal of old timers to end Social Security. Okay. Ron Helton says, if we lose most of us old timers to this virus, this could be time for you young people to demand an end to this Social Security Ponzi scheme. People over 60 make up 80% of the reported deaths. Fact check true. Shutting down the country makes zero logic. Wow, you guys have been active today. Chat rise up against the oppressive hosts. No, we're paying attention to you. Don't worry. Sully Blue says, I have an O2 Cummins with no issues. Knock on fucking wood. Well, now you don't.
You said it.
Yeah. You're putting all that torque through a Chrysler transmission.
Buyer beware.
Saint says, Saint will have the last word until our next topic ends here. And he says, added 83 new cases to Arizona in the past week. Well, thank you for your service, Saint, and getting the goods out to the people. And we will circle back for the rest. So we will go on to 2020 Watch at this point here because everybody's forgotten about that. And the first thing on the news for 2020 this week is that we are down to 2 on the Democratic side. Tulsi Gabbard has suspended her campaign officially. She has gone out and officially endorsed Biden. And no word right now whether or not she will try to run again for her House seat. Remember that during her presidential campaign, she suspended that campaign. So, what did you think about that?
Yeah, for all the talk of being the one who was going to unite all of the Democrats, I was a little disappointed that she suspended the campaign and then gave all of her support to Joe Biden. I was like, okay, I guess, but that came on the heels with the other candidates who dropped out, giving their support over to Joe Biden. So I'm a little curious to find out if maybe there was some words exchanged. It's like, yeah, you're going to drop out and you're going to give all your support over to Biden because we don't want Bernie Sanders in there. So I'll leave my monogrammed tinfoil hat on for just a moment for that one. You know, I think there was a little bit behind the scenes chicanery going on.
I don't think that's tinfoil hattery anymore, to be completely honest.
You might be right about that, and that also kind of worries me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're out in the open about this one, and it's funny to me too. I mean, with Tulsi out now, the Democrats have put up 2 people to run for the presidency: a 77-year-old man with Alzheimer's disease and a 78-year-old communist who just had a heart attack.
Who always looks like he's on the verge of having another one any moment.
He does. He looked tired at one of his events recently. I didn't see the live stream that I talked about this morning, but I know he's been at an event. He just looks tired.
I mean, it's a lot to keep up with, and especially if you're getting hounded by even members of the Democrats who don't want you there because they wanted Hillary the last time, and this time I guess they're going to settle for Biden because he was vice president under Obama. So I don't know. It's that's one of those where you're just going to have to look, and they did everything they could to keep Tulsi out of there by changing all of the debate rules and everything. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, all of these other candidates just supporting Biden out of nowhere, even though the couple weeks before they were attacking him, for being old, out of touch. It's political season in this country gets crazier and crazier, and it just seems like 2020 is going to be no exception.
Well, you have to remember now that Tulsi has endorsed Biden. He is officially in receipt of Russian collusion.
Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot. Tulsi was a Russian asset.
Well, that's why she went after Warren and Hillary.
Yeah, complete Russian asset, even though she's a member of the military who has a security clearance. But let's not facts get in the way of a good story.
Facts don't care about your feelings, but they do get in the way of a good narrative, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Do you think she goes back to try and reclaim her House seat? I know there's not that many people in Hawaii, but...
Yeah, if she had already suspended that campaign to get reelected, I don't know. Maybe she accepted the Biden endorsement on contingent on getting some kind of cabinet position. You never know. All of that meeting.
I don't know. That would be interesting to see her get back into the House if she did, though, because, I mean, there's no chance that a Republican is going to take that seat. Not in Hawaii.
Oh, that's going to be a blue state for a long time. That's yeah, they might have a different shade of Democrat coming in next time. Who may be a little bit more pro-war than Tulsi is.
So let's talk, since we've pretty much established where we fall on Tulsi here, let's talk about Biden and the fact that nobody's seen him for a week, and the point where the country seems to be in its worst shape. This has been a common gripe against from Bernie Bros, rather. They like to throw around the fact that nobody has seen Joe Biden since the debate for that. Yeah, that was pretty much, they had a small teleconference that he attended, and they screwed up royally. But other than that, nobody's seen the guy. And of course, the Bernie bros want their revolution, and they hate the fact that Biden is 300 delegates ahead at this point. But there are a couple theories that I have about this as well. First off, Styx, I was listening to Styx Hexenhammer this morning, and he got it perfectly right. Biden doesn't need to campaign anymore. There's no reason for him to come out of the House right now.
Much. And his advisors and everything are probably telling him, hey, you need to stay away from a microphone for a little bit. Especially after telling that auto worker that nobody's coming to take his AR-14 and calling him a liar and everything. It was and then trying to hush his assistant, which I'm pretty sure the Democrats didn't watch that one too carefully because his assistant was a female.
Yeah.
And he was trying to mansplain to her.
Oh no.
So yeah, I got to imagine his handlers are probably saying, "Yeah, just stay away from a camera for a couple of weeks.
Oh no.
Don't get out there and say anything dumb, please."
Well, the other thing that bothers me is I don't know what these Bernie kids expect Biden to do. And I've gotten into the Bernie kids right now think that I'm a Biden shill. They think I'm a Democrat because of the argument that I had with them yesterday. Because there's nothing that Joe Biden can do right now. He's not an elected official. All he can do is make a speech and tell everybody. They say, oh, well, he can go in and pressure the Republicans and the Democrats to work together on something. How? Explain to me how. Is he going to have Corn Pop come in there with a straight razor?
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of hits the nail on the head. I mean, if you really wanted to dunk on him, I guess you could say, well, I mean, if he really wanted to throw some sway in the House, he could go to K Street and become a lobbyist for something and start throwing around $500 dinners for free. That might sway an opinion here and there. But other than that, yeah, what is he going to do? Go out and make a speech?
And like you said,
that's pretty much it.
You kind of want to keep him away from a microphone at this point.
But yeah, he's gaffed himself into a corner. And we don't need any more sound bites out there. Although, as a podcaster, I really hope for sound bites.
Well, realistically, too, even if he's not the one behind the strategy, it goes to a point, too. Stay away from a microphone because the microscope right now is on Bernie Sanders with the fact that he's throwing out his $2,000 stimulus idea, which we'll talk about in a second here, and Trump, who is taking the lightning rod treatment from the media for everything right now, and this whole thing with Pelosi is going to be no different. So they're sitting here tearing each other apart or tearing themselves apart here, and Biden's just sitting back with his hands in his pocket, letting the kids rub down his hairy legs or something.
Yeah, and that summer he also found out about roaches.
Roaches?
That was one of his clips. It kind of like as the throwaway line in the middle. He was talking about kids, wanting to see his blonde hairs stand up in the pool, and then he said, just kind of like in passing, is like, and that summer I found out about roaches, and I have no idea what he was talking about.
Oh, I think I know what he was talking about. He was talking a little bit of the green there, I think.
Maybe.
He might have learned what the blunt roach blunt was. Oh, if only the DOT
Are you insinuating
didn't
that Joe Biden has a pair of roach clips in his pocket?
Maybe not now, but I mean, the 60s were a weird time.
And if you can remember it, you weren't truly there.
But yeah, I think that his best place is to sit in his little mansion out in, I don't know where he lives, Delaware or whatever the hell. Sit in his mansion and let everybody else tear each other down and pick up the pieces. I don't think it's going to do anything for him, but I think that's the best place for him right now.
I mean, from everything that I can see, that he's got that nomination locked up. I don't see even with some of these delayed primaries, like here in Louisiana, we're delaying ours. I can't see him losing because Bernie Sanders has just got to get out there and talk, and the mainstream Democrats don't like that. So it's I think you're right. If he just sits back, just kind of hangs loose for a minute, when it comes time for a next debate, he can get out there, and hopefully his advisors have given him all of the B12 and lithium shots that he needs to make a coherent argument. But just sit back, relax for a little bit. The world will be his oyster afterwards, I'm sure.
So let's talk about Sanders and his proposal for all of this. Now, Sanders couldn't be outdone by Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump wanting to give away $1,200 of people's tax money back to them based on what they earned in 2018.
Right.
And he promised a free, not tax based, $2,000 stimulus to every American citizen needs to get the $2,000 right now, except for the millionaires and the billionaires. Except I'm a millionaire now, so they're exempt from that. And forget I said anything.
Yeah. We need to give everybody a $2,000 check immediately. Yeah.
So what did you see on that story?
Just the usual Bernie stuff. People are going to get money for free. It's just not even going to talk about where that money even comes from, because nothing is free. Trying to out socialist Donald Trump in this by trying to be the first one to give the checks out.
Right.
Yeah, so that for me, it's just straight up trying to bribe for votes at this point.
And his fans are just so vicious at this point, too. They know they're going to lose.
Oh.
I
And
can't wait for Milwaukee this summer. I cannot wait.
that's going to be a great time.
I'm going to be there.
Yeah, get right in there, right in the middle of it.
Well, it's only an hour over there.
Yeah, that's true.
And Stephen Ignoramus, we talked about it on last week's show, is going to come up and he's going to crash on my couch. We're going to go over there together.
Yeah, just be careful. Bernie Bros have been known to get a little pushy and shovey.
Oh, and Kyle Jurek said the city is going to burn.
That is a possibility.
It's going to be so fun to watch.
Yeah, the Bernie Bros. At this point they got screwed in 2016. It looks like they're going to get screwed again here in 2020. At some point, maybe stop supporting Democrats if they're just going to roll you over like that. But
So tell me about Super Tuesday number 3. And like you had mentioned, your state was one of them that got delayed. So tell me about the hype that came up to this and how you found out about the fact that you weren't going to be voting on Tuesday.
down here in Louisiana, once the COVID-19 stuff started going around, it was kind of rumored that they were going to delay the election, and then to everybody's not shock and surprise, they did. But down here, the Democrats are a little different. They're blue dog Democrats, so a lot of they'll still maintain gun rights to an extent. They're not completely innocent on that, but Bernie is just a little bit too much for him, and so most of the talk that I heard of is that we're just going to go down there and vote for Biden, because he's a good guy. He was Obama's vice president. Yeah, that was pretty much the extent of it, and also had some Republican friends who said they were going to switch parties just so they can go vote for Bernie just to watch the world burn.
Now, do you have an open primary down there?
No, it's closed. So
Okay.
if you wanted to vote for Democrat, you had to go register as a Democrat. So during primary season, you'll see a lot of that where they'll switch parties back and forth and try to go spoil each other's elections. It's quite fun. It can get pretty intense. So we were also the state during the Republican convention that got into a fist fight over Ron Paul delegates back in 2016 and 2012. So
I love
get a
election
little-
time.
yeah, it can get a little raucous down here.
So on the states that did vote were Florida, Arizona, and Illinois, which I called it on my gaming stream when I was playing Fallout New Vegas. I called that this was going to happen. Bernie got what's the political correct word for fucking spanked?
Well, I don't enjoy PC, so you can just say fucking spanked.
And I knew it was
Right.
good. I couldn't call Arizona. I will admit that because there are so many California immigrants that went out to Arizona. It was hard to tell where that would go.
You want to talk about ideologically inconsistent. It's like, oh man, California sucks. There's so many taxes. Let's move over to Arizona and then vote the same way.
Yeah. But a lot of the
It's
snowbirds, I think, pulled it out for Biden.
you're probably correct on that, especially in Florida. I'm sorry, Florida, how they pronounce it.
Well, I was talking Arizona just because I knew Florida
Oh,
was going to
Arizona.
go for Biden because of all the Cuban expats.
Yeah, they're definitely not going to be on board for anything that Bernie says.
And Illinois was, well, that was Barack's home state, and Biden served under Barack, so I kind of knew that was going to go for Joe Biden too.
It was pretty close though, wasn't it?
No, no, Bernie
Okay.
got his ass handed to him in every state went out that primaried last Tuesday.
As my 11-year-old says on Fortnite, get wrecked.
Yeah, and wrecked he got. So, what do you think about? Well, obviously now we're sitting at a point where Biden is 300 delegates ahead of Bernie. This was when they were still counting. So this was a week ago. Made the observation when they were still counting. It was Biden had 1,100 and Bernie had 800, but they actually put the statistics out for the remaining delegates. And now this has changed because they finished counting. But at the time, Joe Biden needed 48.2% of the remaining delegates, and Bernie needed 68.3% of the remaining delegates in order to seal the 1991 coveted number.
I just pulled that up myself. So right now it shows Biden at 1215 and Bernie Sanders at 909.
Yeah. And I don't know how many delegates are left, so I can't do the percentage off the top of my head. But yeah, it's got to be down in the 30 versus 50 range.
Yeah.
And yet I go on Twitter and still try to convince Bernie to stay in the race and try to convince Bernie Bros to stay with Bernie because I want to watch the world burn.
Yeah. Stick it. Stay there.
Stay in, you can do it. Get that contested convention, Bernie.
Yes. Go for a broker convention so you can get screwed again.
Well, that's pretty much all I have on 2020, and that last part kind of folds into the three questions I always ask at the end of 2020 Watch to the guest. We've gone from a point where I was asking these questions about 25 people, and now I'm asking them about 2 people. So the first question is obvious at this point, but statistically, based on the news you've seen, the delegate count and everything else, blah, 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 who do you think the nominee is going to be?
Yeah, after all this, I think Biden's got it clinched. I can't see Bernie being that much of a disruptor going forward. And all of the other candidates are now out. So, yeah, I think Biden's got this one locked up.
I'm going to change the format at this point. Just because I can, and there's only 2 people left. So now going back through the field of 25 people. So you can choose from all 25 people that ran again now. If Trump were to have dropped dead at some point in the primary or in the race, and Pence couldn't pull it back together, you had to have one of the 27 people that ran for president on the Democrat ticket as your president. Which one is the lesser of 27 evils?
Oh, well, I want to say Marianne Williamson just because crystal ball power. But being serious, I would have to say probably Tulsi, just because she was a little more anti-war than the rest of them. Although she wasn't, completely on that. She still wanted some intervention going on. But out of all of them, I think Tulsi probably would have been the lesser of all the evils up there. Yeah, Marianne Williamson would have just been fun to watch, but fun to watch is not necessarily translates into good times for everybody.
Well, at that point, I think you answered the third question. And once again, going back to the full field, not just the ones that are left. Who would be your candidate for the lulls? The one to be on the stage next to Trump, the one to give you the best ads, and just the one who would be the most entertaining to watch?
Oh yeah, definitely Marianne Williamson. Oh yeah,
Do you think she would have hugged Trump on the stage?
he definitely would have, and Trump would have hugged her right back.
I think he would have, actually. He's a showman.
Yeah, he would have, and he would have said, "I said, now look at here. This is going to be the best debate, the greatest debate of all time. I know it. You know it. Everybody knows it. Yeah. It's going to be great.
All
And
right.
if we ever get a movie about Marianne Williamson, Parker Posey needs to play her. I'm just going to put that
Oh,
out into the
God.
universe.
Nice. I like that.
Yes.
All right. Let's check in with the live chat here, see what they had to say. Let's go back to 83 cases in Arizona was the last one we read. Generational Gap is here, and with the R there, that must be Robert is over here from Generational Gap, which John would have come in with his horribly suggestive screen name if it would have been him over here. So yeah, that would have been Robert. What's up, brother? Welcome, welcome on in, Robert. We'll have to go over and check his show out after this. Spartan says, "Is Biden in a bunker? He might be." Saint says, "Gen Gap is a libertarian shill." Yes, fact check, true. China declared the worst of the virus is open. They opened 500 movie theaters. Did you hear the conspiracy theory that, like, was it 1 million people dropped off of China's cell phone service?
That one I have not heard.
I haven't had
Although
a
I might
chance
have
to
look
vet
that up.
it.
Yeah, I might have to look that one up a little bit later.
I haven't had a chance to vet it. I heard it like right before we started the call here. I saw it on Twitter. And it's interesting.
I might have to go troll the Corbett report and see if he's got anything on it.
Saint says he always looks tired, though. Yeah, Bernie? Yeah, he's running out of steam. Robert says he looks energetic when he has a shoulder to rub. Yeah,
Oh, for Biden? Yeah.
it must be Biden because Bernie's not that much of a sniff and diddle guy. Biden reminds me of a dog that likes to sniff other dogs' behinds. Fact check, true. China's going to rule the world if the rest of it burns while they recover. Thank you, Spartan. Generational Gap says, always buy into the shill. It's what keeps capitalism on top. Saint says, Hawaii used to be red, or am I mistaken? I don't know the answer to that question. Helton says, Gavin Newsom just claimed that Kelly would need an extra 50,000 beds for the sick. Doesn't surprise me. Modern shipping and aviation has made Hawaii cave to the dark side. Well, it's a service industry oriented state, too. You have to keep that in mind.
A lot of tourist dollars.
And a lot of waitresses and bartenders that aren't getting as much money as they think they should.
That's very true.
Ron Helton says gas prices approach less than $1 per gallon in Oklahoma City. Lots of layoffs in the oil field. Some of the layoffs started in the fall. That is insane because we haven't seen that since the 70s.
I've actually been the victim of oil and gas going down. What was it? 2012 when gas prices went down below $60 a barrel, and everybody started getting laid off. And that was I do engineering and design work. So yeah, if oil and gas goes down, a lot of people lose their jobs. So
It is $1.48 in the town that I live in.
somebody had posted that they had saw it was like $1.27 in Kansas, I think it was.
That is
Which is pretty
officially the
crazy.
lowest gas has ever been to me. And we're getting to a point where that's not even inflation included.
Yeah, lowest I've ever seen it was mid 90s in Georgia. I think it was like 79 cents a gallon. I don't think we're ever going back there, but
When I got my license in 2000, it was 171.
yeah, even today in Louisiana, it was like $1.90, I think. 'Cause, Louisiana hates poor people and they like to tax them.
State Department scrambles to bring 13,000 stranded Americans home. Yeah, that's an important thing they need to do. Ron, if you have an article for that, put it in the Discord so I can vet it and possibly do it on Contemporary in the morning. Rob says, peace out, gotta go do something I pretend is important. So we'll be checking in with the Generational Gap after this show. Absolutely. Great show, by the way, one of our partners over on Freedom Scoop. Sully Blue says, yeah, Gen Gap. Ron Helton says later. Saint says it's showtime. So, yep, they all know where they're going. And we will circle back and check in with more live chat once we get done talking about what do we have next? Ilhan Omar.
Yes, the wonderful Elon Omar.
Some people did something. That one. That was probably
At least
racist.
she told the truth.
So,
I say that she was lying.
in an Instagram post on a surprise 2 weekends ago at this point, like I said, I wanted to do this on Ed's World last week, but Steven and I ran out of time. Representative of Minnesota 5, Ilhan Omar, announced that she was married now to Tim Mynett, a campaign advisor who she had been accused of having an affair with and vehemently denied before. Now, Mynett took the majority of Ilhan's campaign finances. I think they spent almost $500,000 in Mynett's firm this past year. And there are some other ideas of why she might have married the guy here, but what have you seen on this story so far before we get into the theories that go along with it?
Yeah, with Elon Omar, probably one of the worst takes that you can ever give on Twitter. It's always fun for me. I guess her love interest, Tim Mynett. There was a picture going around of a Antifa rally at one point where someone thought that they had saw Elon Omar and Tim Mynett there, and there was some pretty compelling picture evidence. I'll just leave it at that. So, but yeah, this is definitely a one of those things. It's, you kind of scratch your heads at it. It was like, well, you're accused of having an extramarital affair, but here you are marrying the guy. So who were you married to before exactly?
Wasn't that her brother she was married to?
If you follow the Imam of Peace on Twitter, he definitely leveled that charge several times.
I actually found on PolitiFact they have that rated as undetermined. So they can't even say fact check false on that one. And they're a pretty lefty site to begin with.
Yeah, just a little bit. Tongue firmly planted in cheek.
So
Yeah. That's a political operative just getting onto the latest hotness on the on Capitol Hill with the member of the squad. So
do you think she's actually Muslim at this point? Because she has violated so many religious laws. And most of the time she's wearing a Sikh headdress. She's not even wearing a hijab.
yeah, anytime that I see this and they all want to use their religion as a cover, it's like, oh no, I can't do that. That's haram. I can't do that. And Barack Obama was supposed to be a secret Muslim too, but he drone bombed everybody in the Muslim world. It seemed like so. Yeah, par for the course. I don't know. There's a lot of secular Muslims in the United States. I know of several who were drink alcohol on the regular. They don't demand that their daughters wear hijabs or burqas or anything.
Right.
So maybe he's one of those, but it looks good on TV. I don't know. It's up to say what's in somebody's heart. I'm not a psychic. I wish I
Right.
was though. It's kind of neat.
Well, I mean, going back to Ilhan, I mean, just what she did with her first husband and her second husband. If she was in a strict enough sect where she would always have to be in a headdress and have to have house rules changed so she would always be in a headdress, she would have been stoned to death.
It would definitely have been frowned upon at the very least.
Frowned upon indeed.
And not just that part of the world that just hasn't faced a reformation of their teachings. So,
Right. But with Ilhan Omar, if she goes out and gets married, you always have to wonder if there is an ulterior motive behind this. Of course, with the accusation that she was married to her brother, that would have been for immigration fraud and student loan fraud.
Right.
And with Mynett, it is no different because Christensen pointed out in a solo video that he did about this, and I didn't even think about this aspect of it. I thought about the other aspect, but this aspect I didn't think about. With all of the money that her campaign has paid to Mynett's firm, she now has a clear shot at that money.
very true. Because, it's now just a divorce away.
not even a divorce away. It's joint at this point, joint accounts, joint everything else. So
Oh yeah, that's very true too.
this definitely enriched her, whether it's divorce or what she shares with her husband at this point.
It's not just her. What other campaigns has he managed?
A few. I don't know which ones that he has managed before, but like I say, the thing that gets me is that it seems money laundery at this point
Yeah.
because she has access to her own money again.
Kind of right up there with the AOC and her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was that little bit of scandal where the boyfriend was spending a whole bunch of campaign dollars too. So
I hear he's the guy with the
I
camera.
don't know. That the guy with the camera.
Was that too soon? Was that too subtle?
Just a little bit.
The other side of this, of
Subtle as
course.
an explosion.
What's that?
I said it was about as subtle as an explosion.
Yeah. The other aspect of this, of course, is given the fact that Omar herself is sitting under several counts of campaign finance fraud, plus marriage fraud, plus student loan fraud, possibly, is the fact that, especially if there's campaign finance involved in this, and even if there isn't, I'm sure Minette knows quite a bit about the other financial transactions that went along with the immigration fraud and the student loan fraud. The two of them now have spousal privilege, and they never have to testify against each other again, even if they get divorced. They can never be compelled to testify against each other.
Yeah, that's a sweet little gig. Yeah, and he definitely, if he has access to all of her finances, he definitely knows where all the bodies are buried, metaphorically speaking.
Probably literally speaking, too. It is Capitol Hill, after all.
That is very true. And if we know one thing, House of Cards is the real deal.
I've never seen House of Cards.
I watched like a few episodes of the British version, but it's Kevin Spacey's face, and I know.
You know what was a good political drama, and a lot of people backlash against me on it, but I actually liked it? Designated Survivor. They actually did that one, I thought, fairly well.
Yeah, I watched the first 4 or 5 episodes of that one, and I couldn't get into it. But it seemed like they had probably a lot of advisors on that show. It was like, no, he would go like this, and then by the time I got through, it was like, okay, well, this is obviously some kind of false flag show. And sure enough, one of the congressmen found himself into like an armored closet somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Well, it's funny to me too, because when they put it on Netflix, it was the CBS version, and then they put out their own season to it as well, and you could just see the line between when it was on CBS and when it was a Netflix show, because the language changed completely.
Yeah,
because they can get away with saying the naughty words on Netflix.
There's a show that I watch called The Expanse, and it went through 3 seasons on the Sci-Fi Network, and then Amazon got it. And season 4, you can definitely tell the Amazon's influence on it, because a lot of the way that the show was shot, and like you said, script, and just the way that they presented it was a lot different. So sometimes it's great when they shows get canceled and then they get picked up by one of the streaming services.
All right. Well, that's what I have on Omar right now. So we'll check in with the live chat here, and we got one more topic or two. We have 2 more topics here, so they're quick hitters though. Let's see what the live chat has to say here. Ron Helton is experiencing a lot of buffering, but he's got the Bat Soup sticker out here, so apparently that went through. Must be a lot of internet traffic here. Well, you're that close to Texas, so that could be. Sully Blue says, mine's been fine. Ron says, I have no problem late at night. It's usually around prime time that I experience lag and buffering.
Yeah.
DSL, they were talking, it must be just a hiccup. So we'll check back with them in a bit here. And we will talk about... The DOJ has dropped charges on the Russian troll farms. Now, if we don't remember this, the Mueller probe netted several indictments, against individuals and two corporations that were originating in Russia that could have used the funds that they brought over here to buy the Facebook ads that would have swayed the election, or so was written in the Mueller report. Now, of course, we know that extradition was not going to be a possibility from the Putin administration, even though several extradition requests were sent, and anything further than that would have violated several treaties and other diplomatic laws. So it appears that William Barr has chosen to just completely dismiss the charges. What did you see on this so far?
Yeah, the whole the Facebook ads swayed the election, and then when you go into it, it's like most of those ads happened after the election, and even the ads that did run before the election, I mean, they weren't all that great. And if you're saying that the voters are dumb enough to, see some dumb meme and then switch their vote, why are we voting at that point? If that's all it takes is just a dumb meme to go out there that's not even like grammarly makes sense. It's pretty crazy. And then afterwards, you indict 14 individuals at what was it, the Internet Research Agency, I guess is the troll farm that they're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, good luck trying to extradite. Putin's definitely not going to throw anybody under the bus for that one. So yeah, that one just had. This is a waste of time and effort to begin with. I mean, I don't think Russians trolling Facebook ads is what sank the election. I think the Democrats running a unlikable person and not going after electoral college votes is what sank their chances, not the fact that the Russians helped Donald Trump. It seems silly.
Well, and also you think about the idea of, they kept saying that, well, Hillary Clinton didn't go to Wisconsin. You think it's a coincidence that they're having the DNC in Milwaukee this year?
Yeah. No, that's definitely not a coincidence at all. Yeah, it's like, well, you forgot about the blue collar workers in the middle of the country. I was like, mm-hmm. And guess where you guys are spending a lot of time at?
We can't get rid of them.
I know.
We've tried. We spray all the roach spray in the world, and they just won't go away.
Well, Madison, Wisconsin will forever remain the deepest royal blue as possible.
Or are you familiar with the area?
Just a little bit. Yeah, Madison is always one of those places that comes up where, you're going to see some really silly articles about, students and SJW nonsense and everything else. And even before that, it was kind of like the liberal bastion of college learning.
Yeah, I used to work in Madison. I never lived there, but I used to work there. I saw a lot of it.
I think the last time I went through there was like the early 90s. It's a nice little town.
Yeah,
Looks nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful scenery outside. Yeah.
At this point, too, they have like every kind of food you could imagine, and it's all takeout at this point because of the lockdown. But no matter what you want to eat in Madison, you can find it.
It's definitely just because there's so many different cultural influences there as well. Mm-hmm. Same thing kind of happened in Dearborn, Michigan.
Yeah.
You started getting everybody from Ethiopia and everywhere else. It's kind of great, break up the monotony between hot dogs and Detroit style pizza.
What is Detroit style pizza? I've never heard that term.
It's a square pizza that they cut, pretty similar to a Sicilian style pizza, but the crust is thick, but it's not like a deep dish. Yeah, good stuff.
Because I lived close to Chicago for a long time, and I do love myself some deep dish pizza, but
yeah, if you ever get a chance, definitely hit up a Sicilian style or a Detroit style. It's a lot different than the New York or the Chicago, but nobody actually ever talks about it, which is kind of funny.
So let's go back to these Russian guys. Now, one of the guys that was at the top of this here was apparently, from the way I understand it, he also ran a catering company that was employing some of the same people that were in the internet company, and he's called Putin's chef, so he did have direct access to the president at some point.
I like the name that they gave him. It's like trying to set him up with some kind of like mob nickname, Putin chef. the chef of Putin. You know?
Yeah.
And then when he was like, oh no, he's a caterer. I mean, he's probably literally Putin chef.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I say, this was all symbolic anyway, and it. Robert Mueller had to know that this was symbolic from the beginning. That there was never going to be an extradition, and like I said, anything that they tried to do to force these guys back out onto U.S. soil was going to be a diplomatic nightmare. 100%.
Yeah, there was nothing that you were going to do that didn't just scream, hey, we're trying to start a war with you.
Well, we can't start a war with them because Trump is Putin's puppet.
Yeah, that's right.
Except for the massive sanctions that they put on Russia over the Nord 2 pipeline that nobody in the mainstream news talked about.
Or not letting them get their way in Syria and everything else. So it's yeah, but some puppet.
Yeah, absolutely. But they got him elected.
Sure. We'll just go with the mainstream narrative on that one.
And they installed Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes, the Russian asset.
And Jill Stein.
Jill Stein also named as a Russian asset.
Yep.
Might as well. She's part of the Green Party, right? So yeah, go for it.
And Bernie Sanders. He's a Russian asset too.
I mean, he did have his honeymoon there.
Yeah, that's actually the most believable of them all.
I saw the video of him singing that song with his shirt off. He was very impressed with the puppet shows.
I have not seen the video.
Oh,
Should
yeah,
I be scared? At some point, I know I'm going to have to watch the video. Should I be scared?
It's kind of rough. They're singing some kind of I want to say it was like an Arlo Guthrie song. This land is your land. This land is my land. And like all the dudes have got their shirts off, and it's bothersome. I was like, I don't think I should be watching this. But yeah, that was filmed in Russia during his honeymoon.
Did you see the prank call from the Russian guys to Bernie Sanders?
That I didn't see. I did see the prank call from the supposed Turkish guys to Lindsey Graham. So the one to Bernie I might have missed.
They've hit several key Democrats with the same shtick. It's Greta Thunberg every time, or that's who they're claiming to be. They hit Waters. They hit Waters. They hit who else did they hit? They hit Schiff, and they hit Bernie Sanders. And I played a clip of it on Ed's World when Jake was on, and it rendered Jake speechless. I don't know if you're familiar with Jake, the former owner of Freedom Scoop, but he talks constantly. And I was able to render him speechless by that video. All he could say was dancing Russian bears.
Dancing Russian bears.
Well, because at the end of it, the person who was playing Greta Thunberg said that she was going to activate Bernie as the sleeper agent from Russia. And then he promptly hung up on her.
It's like at that point, it's like, oh, I'm being trolled.
But yeah, if you can't find it, you got to see it. You're in my Discord. I'll see if I can get you the video link for it. It is hysterical. Even the little, because I cut half of it down for a time constraint on Ed's World, and even the half of it that I put up was hysterical. And they put a cartoon with it too, so you get the full thing of it.
Yeah, I always love the animation.
All right, looks like we haven't had a lot of motion in the live chat here, so let's check on with the Salt Lake City earthquake. So Wednesday, late at night, I believe it was, a magnitude 5.7 earthquake hit just outside of Salt Lake City. From the most part, it seems that the airport and most of the main buildings in the city needed to be checked for damage, but the medical facility that was treating COVID-19 patients was heavily affected and had to be evacuated. So the patients that were being treated had to be set back outside and with the general population off of this. But the reason I wanted to cover the story, and the fact that I couldn't find a lot of resources on it even when I covered it over on Contemporary, was the fact that the mainstream media just kind of seemed to miss this. They kind of seemed to forget about this. I got one picture here of just some of the damage. And you can see chunks have fallen out of buildings, and the streets are cleared at this point. People are getting ready into cleanup mode here, but I'm really bothered by the fact that nobody talked about this at all, except for a few independent media types and maybe one or two green check articles. So what did you...
Yeah, that's kind of strange. I mean, you would think a pretty major earthquake in a populous city like that, you would have some kind of coverage. I can't imagine that COVID-19 is everything that you want to talk about. Back, to the blood red map of the COVID-19, just to say, hey, by the way, there was a earthquake in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I mean, it was on CNN, but it was like at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, it's almost seems like it was something that may have been going on at the bottom ticker on the screen. It's like major earthquake. I mean, you guys were looking to score points on global warming causing all these earthquakes.
Hmm.
Yeah, you could have had one more on the up on the deck ready to go. I
Well,
don't know.
have you
That's
noticed that
that's
climate change talk
strange.
has stopped?
Yes. Once we all kind of found out that Greta Thunberg was basically just being used by her parents, uh, the whole train ride to Germany where she was like, "Look at all these people around," and then the train company coming out is like, "Yeah, but you had first class tickets." So yeah, all of that stuff seemed to have has gone away. I'm pretty sure after the COVID-19 stuff, they're gonna try to loop back to it. I'm sure that's because that's gonna be getting pretty close to election time.
Yeah. Well, the train stuff, the Thunberg stuff, and the climate change stuff stopped as they tried to kick industry back up in this country so they can make all these test kits that China won't supply to us. But have you noticed that the open borders argument has stopped as well?
Yeah, that's well, in respects to the U.S., I remember seeing where Mexico said that they are going to start suspending immigration from their borders due to COVID-19. So it's kind of an interesting turn of the tables, so to speak.
They're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. What did he tell you?
Obviously, obviously.
He managed to keep yet another campaign promise. It's amazing. So I wanted to touch on that, and I know I'm trying to find, and there are hardly any charities out there for you to find to get relief over to the people of Salt Lake as they start to clean up and start to rebuild and start to get the medical attention to the people with the COVID-19 that are out there because that is still something that they need to face. So I'm going to try and find a charity for this still. I've been a bit sidetracked this week, but I'm still going to try to find a GoFundMe and get it out on Twitter and get people supporting that. It's not going to be the one that's the other announcement we have to make here, but I'll do that later at the end here. But it's not going to be the one that we'll be doing with the rest of Freedom Scoop. But see, even on your own, if you can go out and anybody watching, find a charity to try and help the people rebuild because the country forgot about this disaster and it did displace a lot of people. So make sure you go and see if you can help private Americans. I know some of you are furloughed and you're not getting as much money as you could be right now, but throw a little bit of money their way. Remember, it's tax deductible, and taxation is still theft. So
Exactly.
we're going to check back with the live chat one last time here before we close out of the show. Ron Helton says, I only get 12 megabytes per second on a good day. I live in a rural area. Sully Blue says, all right, great show. Jumping to Gen Gap before I fall asleep. See you guys. Yeah, we'll see you over there after. Well, I'll see you over there after this is done. I don't know if Eric is going to come over with me or not, but I'll see you over there. Ron Helton says, okay, later, Sully. And that is going to be it for live chat for the night. Thanks, everybody, for watching and checking us out over here. And, of course, the last thing that we do on this show, because everything that we talk about is so negative and there's so much contention out of here, as we try to end on a positive note. So, Eric, tell the audience about a hobby that you have that has nothing really to do with work or politics. It could be an album that you picked up, instrument that you're playing, a video game that you've been trying, just something that helps you unwind at the end of all of this media nightmare.
Well, I'll give you a couple there. I do play guitar. I should say I play at it. Eddie Van Halen, I am not, but I still do like to play. I also do like to play video games, and you mentioned Fallout New Vegas. I got that on the laptop. I just purchased Wasteland Remastered, the original Wasteland computer game they had brought back out in the end of February.
Oh,
and
Nice.
started playing that one as well as Fallout 76 because I'm a sycophant. So
You're going newer, and I'm actually getting the package, I think, later on this week of the first two games that they have on Steam right now. So,
for Fallout 1 and 2.
yep. And Brotherhood Tactics is on there too. So,
Yeah, I'll have to look that up.
that's like $20 on Steam to get all three games.
Might as well.
And I do like turn based better than the live action style. So, well,
I can take it or leave it on either one of them. It's kind of one of those things. They're fun in their own ways.
yeah. Well, thanks for stopping by and reading the news with me. That was helpful for anybody who's watching now or back on the replays here. Make sure you check the descriptions and find the links to go find Eric. Follow him on Twitter or go check out his show on Anchor FM. I'd not heard about that before I started interviewing because I talked to Jessica Green and Britt from Tweets by Britt. That was who introduced me to the network. Is that just a podcast network or is that something else going on there?
Yeah, it started off as an app. I was getting a little frustrated with Libsyn because that's, I mean, pretty much where most of us go to get our podcast hosted. But then I was running into, well, you can only upload so much. And one of the guys from the Actual Anarchy podcast, Daniel Elwood, turned me on to Anchor and he goes, yeah, and by the way, they'll give you an ad right up front so you can make a little bit of money from it. And it's free. So I was like, all right, well, let's do that. And that's what I've been kind of stuck with them, but they just got bought out by Spotify. So when you get your podcast set up on Anchor, you immediately go to Spotify, and that's a big audience right there. So that'll definitely help.
Oh, I might switch over to that because I'm on Podbean right now and I can't figure out how to get it on Spotify from Podbean. And I know that it's a big audience.
Yeah, Anchor's like built right in for Spotify. iTunes, I think everyone goes through that a couple of weeks where it takes a little bit to get onto iTunes, which is also a huge audience as well.
Well, that might be changing in the near future, listeners, but check that out as well. And thanks for checking me out here. If you want to finish the conversation with me, you can find me over on Twitter. That is at EdsBlog Twitter with a 1 in place of the I, or a myriad of other places down below, which includes my Discord server, my Gab, which I'm not that active on, my Minds, which I need to get more active on because I know they're starting to promote independent content creators as well. So go check us out over there. If you want to find my guest, I know it's linked in the description, but tell us where they can find you.
Anchor.fm/Rebel with a Cause. You can find me there. Once you get into there, check the show notes because that'll have links to everywhere else. Twitter is at EricTheRed79. Why? Because my name is Eric. I have red hair. I was born in 1979. It just fits. I'm also on Instagram at Rebel with a Cause podcast, underscores in between all the words there. It's word salad, I know. I also do have a Facebook link for the show as well. But yeah, that's pretty much all you can find me. I am working on getting a website up there. So that'll be the next phase.
Perfect. Make sure you go check that out. And once again, thank you for checking us out live on Twitch, DLive, YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook. And you can catch us, if you're just joining us now, you can catch us on demand on YouTube and also over on BitChute.com. Make sure you leave us the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, because that helps us overcome YouTube's algorithms and helps us move up BitChute's algorithms because they don't really have many over there. So check us out with that. Or you can check us, if you'd rather take us on the go, on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play through Podbean. And remember, if you check this out on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That really helps us move up the charts and once again, move against the algorithms. We are partnered with the Freedom Scoop Media Group. So, if you're not familiar with us, you saw the generational gap in here. Their show is over there, so go check us out. We are adding Jessica Green. We just added the R-rated conservative to this, so check everybody out over there. Wyatt Birkenhoff, my guest for next week, does a produced video series that's pre-recorded over there, so go check that out as well. All kinds of good stuff there. We're still holding open call for writers, so if you want to write for a freedom of speech website, go ahead and reach out to me, edsblogtwitter@gmail.com. We'll see if we can get you set up with a sample article and get you in. As we always say on this show, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Eric, you have last word.
Yes. I have the last word?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, I would just like to say it's been great talking to you. This is a fantastic content, and you're very well researched, well spoken, and everything. So continue on doing what you're doing, and I hope that audience grows.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.